Welcome to Presidential Fight Club, the show that answers the question, if all 44 presidents fought each other one-on-one, who would win? Hosted by two history professors who have too much time on their hands, Scott Rank and James Early. Hello everyone, welcome to the second fight in the Final Four of the Southeastern Regional. George Washington is going up against Thomas Jefferson, a founding father rumble. James, what does Thomas Jefferson bring to the fight against George Washington?
Well, goodness gracious. Not a whole lot, to be honest with you. He's smarter. Does that count for something? Maybe he'll invent some invisible device and sneak it in there and beat Washington up with it, an invisible club or something. Jefferson's slightly taller. He's younger. Well, I guess actually we're saying they're all 35 at this time, so that doesn't count. Jefferson, I got nothing. I'm sorry, I fold. I give up.
All right. Well, this is, I don't know. I guess Jefferson would appreciate that in the cold face of compelling logic. He would realize when to fight and when to move on. So I guess I could say some more things about Washington. Might as well just make a nice eulogy out of it.
Let's do it.
Well, we talked about Jefferson in a previous fight. And what's interesting is that he and Washington are actually the same height. They're 6'2", among the taller of the two presidents. We don't think of Jefferson as a taller president. I place him along with some of the others like John Adams or James Buchanan. I call them the foppish dandies who have expensive clothing and are like to look at their books and make jokes about Greek classics that would cause other people to guffaw as they drink their Madeira. But Washington is not cut from that cloth. He was a young surveyor in the backwoods of the Ohio Valley when he was 15 years old. His father died when he was younger, so his brothers went to not necessarily a boarding school. Yeah, I guess you could call it a boarding school in England, but because of his death, they couldn't afford that, so he had to become mostly self-educated. While being a surveyor, he made rafts out of trees with his bare hands in below freezing temperatures. He forded rivers, hacking paths through the woods and the mountains. And he had a strength that was incredible. An American artist, Charles Willson Peale, recalls one event where there are several visitors at Mount Vernon in 1773, and they're having a competition to see how far they could throw an iron bar across the lawn. Washington appears and smiles and held out his hand. According to Peale, quote, "No sooner did that heavy iron bar feel the grasp of his mighty hand than it lost the power of gravitation and whizzed through the air, striking the ground far, very far beyond the utmost limits. As he walked away, Washington slyly observed, 'When you beat my pitch, young gentleman, I'll try again.'" So he's a tough guy. He was a sportsman of his day. He was into archery, fox hunting, swimming, wrestling. Thomas Jefferson said that he was one of the best horsemen of the age, and others remarked that he rode, as he did everything else, with ease, elegance, and with power. I think that's a definition of cool. You make something difficult look effortless. So one of our first cool presidents. He was also a sword fighter as well. Letters indicate that Washington played a strenuous game of catch with his aide-de-camp during the Revolutionary War and became such a devoted student of sword fighting that he racked up quite a bill with his trainer. So whether with fist, whether with sword, anything else, I think that he has a lot going for him. James, do voters agree? Who is the winner in this contest?
The voters most definitely agree with you and with me basically on this one. Washington wins quite handily. It wasn't quite the wipeout that it was the last time Washington fought someone, but Washington does triumph by a large margin.
Yeah, were there any defenders of Jefferson? Would they have any sort of case to make that?
Not really. No, there were a few voted for him, but I wonder if it was just sympathy more than anything else or just admiration for Jefferson. Nobody really made a good case for why Jefferson should win this particular one.
And there was one other thing I thought of that, in addition to Washington being stronger and having military experience, there'd be personal beef between the two. So I was reading between the relations.
Oh, yeah.
So do you know much about this, I don't know if you want to call it rivalry or acrimony between the two that is known to have happened?
Well, I mean, yeah, basically, I just got through teaching on this in my classes this past week, but basically, Jefferson and Washington were actually pretty close originally, but Jefferson was very sharply divided with Alexander Hamilton about the direction that the nation should go into. And I'm going to oversimplify things here for the sake of time, but Hamilton was more of a big government person. He wanted a stronger central government. He wanted a national banking system. He wanted other things. He wanted a tax on whiskey. He wanted a nation that was going to be more based on manufacturing, whereas Jefferson disagreed with all those points. He wanted a weak central government. He wanted more power in the states. He wanted a nation based on agriculture. He didn't like tariffs and taxes and things like that. So basically, to use layman's terms, Jefferson thought Hamilton was screwing up the country. Hamilton basically won Washington over to his side. Washington tended to agree. In fact, there's a song in the Hamilton musical where Madison and Jefferson sing, "It must be nice to have Washington on your side." And so Jefferson began to write articles under a pseudonym that alleging that Washington was going senile and that he was letting Hamilton run all over him, which was not true. Washington did make his own decisions. He just thought Hamilton was right most of the time. But Jefferson became very... and he wrote some things in private letters to people, and eventually Washington finds out about it. And most of this occurred after Jefferson had left the cabinet. We recall that Washington actually handpicked Jefferson to be his own Secretary of State, but Jefferson left pretty early in Washington's second term. And so later on, when these writings of Jefferson's became, because people didn't always keep their private letters private, they would pass them around. Sometimes they get printed. So I think one of these letters got printed, or if not printed, somehow Washington found out about it. I forget the details, that Jefferson had been alleging that he was senile and letting Hamilton run the show and everything. And Washington never forgave him. And the two men never spoke again after that.
It's bad to go up, yeah. And it's bad to go up against a former general and somebody who is also a spy master and had to run his own intelligence office. He's going to find out. So,
it's a good thing that Washington didn't have Andrew Jackson's temperament. He probably would have challenged Jefferson to a duel and shot him or something.
Yeah, I think the way it fizzled out is that in the last letter to Washington, Jefferson denied any wrongdoing, that he never wrote anything like this, and he was only loyal and admiring, and Washington just replies that he had the facts and the relationship is severed. So this fight could be a way to get in. So Washington is going to have the force of anger on his side too, if it wasn't an overwhelming enough victory already.
Right.
Well, okay, Washington advances in a big way, but it's not going to be a smooth ride any longer, because he is going up against Andrew Jackson in the final round of the Southeast Regional. Thanks for listening to Presidential Fight Club. If you'd like to download your own printable bracket sheets for each regional tournament so you can guess how the tournament will go, check out presidentialfightclub.com. We'd appreciate it if you could rate and review us on Apple Podcasts as well. Thanks for listening, and may you fight with the stamina of Teddy Roosevelt, the courage of George Washington, and the reach of Abraham Lincoln.